Good evening. I'm Dr. Joyce Brown. I'm the president of FIT. And some of my fans are here, I can tell. But I am delighted to welcome you to the college and to this very special program. Indeed, it was only 4 days ago that Black History Month segued into Women's History Month, and our program tonight really gives us an opportunity to honor both. So we're about to see a documentary that chronicles a real revolution in the world of fashion. The legendary 1973 Runway show at Versailles, in which American designers and models triumphed in a face-off with Paris. One aspect of that triumph, of course, was the spectacular presence of 12 African-American models who not only helped to break the color line of the runway, but also delivered the goods with real pizzazz. Such an irresistible, high-energy style that it forever changed the way that models walk the runway. In addition, the show included clothing not only by Bill Blass and Halston and Oscar de la Renta, but also by a young, up-and-coming African-American designer named Stephen Burrows. So I will say no more about Versailles, except that we are very fortunate to have Deborah Riley Draper with us. She is the director of the documentary, along with some of the fabulous models who participated, whom you will meet by name in a few moments, and Mickey Taylor from Essence magazine. So they are all going to have much to say on Versailles and its far-reaching influence. So this is actually the 40th anniversary of that moment in the history of fashion, and I cannot think of a better place for it to be celebrated than here at FIT. For one thing, Stephen Burrows, who over the years became a fashion icon, is an FIT alum, and we're very, very proud to call him one of our own. Yep. In fact, FIT is all about access and opportunity and helping gifted young people like Stephen Burrows and Calvin Klein and Amsala Abera achieve their dreams. Many people don't know it, but we're a public institution. We're a college that is part of the State University of New York. And most people think of us as a fashion college, which is understandable given our name. But in fact, today we offer 46-degree programs in ever-expanding fields related to design and art and fashion, such as cosmetics and photography and textiles and toy design and computer animation. And I'm not going to tell you all 46, but you get the idea. But fashion is really our signature program, and we take a special interest in every aspect of its history and its evolution. And so we are delighted and honored to have this opportunity to learn more about that unprecedented, groundbreaking moment at Versailles 40 years ago. So now I am going to introduce Tor Orange, who is the director of FIT's Educational Opportunities Program, to get our program underway. So enjoy.
So thank you all so very much. I must tell you that we were scheduled to have this program this coming Thursday, March 7th, and you can't imagine what a bullet we've missed because there's a darn nor'easter coming. So we're happy that, in fact, it's Tuesday and not Thursday. At the outset, let me say that pulling something like this off has been an incredible labor of love in between managing the students in our office and meeting deadlines. My staff and I were absolutely committed to making certain that this documentary was shown here at the college and that we had an opportunity to invite the executive director of the film and some of the absolutely iconic models who are going to be profiled in the documentary. And of course, the added bonus is that we have the editor-at-large of Essence magazine, Mickey Taylor. So please give her a round of applause as well. We're going to be moving fast and furious. We have a wonderful documentary. We then will have a panel discussion. And so I want to take a moment just to thank the many people who made this possible. Dr. Scott Stoddard and the School of Liberal Arts. Unfortunately, Scott is not here tonight, but certainly want to thank him for his generosity. Dr. Irene Buckman and Presidential Scholars. The museum at FIT, Dr. Valerie Steele. The Diversity Council at FIT. The Enrollment Management and Student Success with my Dean, Eric Newell. Where is he? Here he is. Thank you. And my Vice President, Mary Beth Murphy, who has been very supportive throughout all of this. Dr. Joyce Brown, of course, the president of our college. Student Life, Leonard Davis, who is a legend in his own. Where are you, Leonard? he's still chatting. Still chatting and preparing. And of course, we couldn't do it without Deborah Riley Draper, the director who, absolutely. So here's the short story. I was minding my business in Massachusetts during August, vacationing, and a friend said, there's a film series, let's go see it. And I said, maybe. And he said, well, there's this film, this documentary about fashion. I said, listen, I told you I'm on vacation. He prevailed. We went to see it. And I kid you not, within the first 20 minutes, my wheels were turning. I said, this is a documentary that must find its way to FIT. Deborah was extremely gracious in agreeing to allow us to bring it here. And as a student developer, I'm in the field of student development, student support services. I'm not in events planning. I just thought that also as an educator, it's important to preserve the integrity of history. It's extremely important because as educators, we can't quite convey what students need for the future unless they have a sound understanding of history. So I see this evening as not so much nostalgia. I know listening to the music, we purposely enticed you with 1970s music, get you hopping and bopping. But it's more than about nostalgia. It's about the opportunity intergenerationally to understand what occurred in 1973 in an iconic way, in a transformative way, so that our young people moving forward understand what went down, what occurred, preserving the integrity of history. And so we can't wait to hear from our panelists, who are 7 of the most amazing women who are profiled in this documentary, to hear their voices in support of that history. Without further ado, let me introduce Versailles 73, an American Runway Revolution. Kelly? So it's my understanding that original footage of the show is limited. Is that correct? That there's very limited footage available from the show. So we have this really to use as a teaching tool, and I must say that we owe Deborah Riley Draper tremendous, to have both the vision and the commitment to want to capture this. As we set up for the panel, we would like to do a brief presentation. So please welcome Deborah Riley Draper. Where did she go? Oh. I'm right here.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderfully special evening. It's nice to be able to look and see all of the beautiful faces from Versailles 73. And these ladies are fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed watching them. Someone asked me why was it so special and why was it a treat, and I didn't realize how special and how much of a treat it would actually be until I was done with the process. But along the way, I would receive little emails. Like, I would get an email, this is like in the middle of editing, it would be from Beth Ann. She'd say, how's it going? she said, how you coming along? And I would get these encouraging emails from Pat and Nikki, and, just the other day, Alva was like, you want to grab something to eat? So they were nurturing and taking care of me, and I really wanted to tell their story. But they're so fantastic and fabulous, and if you call Charlene Dash and ask her something, she's like Johnny on the spot. The email comes right back. They're incredible. They're smart, they're talented, they're fascinating, and they did something that should be cherished and recognized from this 40-year mark and 40 years forward. So I think this day is not so much about me as it is about them, because they gave us a platform to tell a wonderful story. And what I learned is through the art of oral storytelling, you build leaders, you build characters, and you allow people to learn. And I hope you learned something from this film, and I hope you remember it, and I hope you realize that it takes one small idea that can make a major flashpoint, that can make a major revolution, that can change the world. So thank you for having me. And I did want to say that although I went to Florida State, I want to know if I can call like FIT home, because it's nice being here, and you guys were very gracious to me in your special collections with the photos and a lot of the materials that are used in this film. So I thank FIT tremendously, because you were very, very helpful. Your archive staff was incredible. They helped me find a lot of stuff. So you're kind of like my second alumni school.
We'd like to present flowers
Thank you.
to you and a gift from FIT.
The Office of Educational Opportunity Program congratulate Deborah Riley Draper of her outstanding documentary, Versailles 73 American Runway Revolution, March 5th, 2013, Fashion Institute of Technology.
And we'd like to invite up each of our guests in alphabetical order. Miss Billy Blair. They will be coming back around to take those from you, just so that you have a little bit more. We'd like to invite up Miss Alva Chin. Please welcome Miss Pat Cleveland.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Miss Charlene Dash.
I know, right? I know, they're long. Why not?
And I'm especially delighted to welcome Miss Norma Jean Darden because she's a hometown girl. I've never seen Alejandro grin as much as he's grinning now. The next person needs no real introduction, Miss Beth Ann Hardison. And our next guest is really at home. My understanding is that you grew up not far from here. Miss Barbara Jackson. And we're delighted to have the editor-at-large of Essence Magazine, Miss Mickey Taylor. So, students, please reclaim the flowers. We want to make them as comfortable as possible. I'd like to introduce the moderator for the panel, Mr.
Thank you. Yes, I did.
The moderator for the panel this evening is an FIT alum. He is a designer and has the distinction also of being one of the largest black collectors of black memorabilia in the country. Spike Lee has used his items in movies. Mr. Leonard Davis. I've asked Leonard to be on his best behavior because you know he's going to turn it up a couple of notches. So hold on.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the warm welcome. Thank you. To the panel, I'd like to just really actually start off by addressing Deborah to just try to get a better understanding of some of the smaller, more intimate parts of how she went about composing this wonderful documentary. I want to say to you, however, that start off, Deborah, by saying I'm a firm believer in the notion that God sometimes will place a task on the heart and mind of certain people to perform. And you have to be willing to carry out that task. And if you accept that responsibility, then all of the tools, all of the cooperation that you need to carry out that task will be given to you. Deborah, thank you for accepting this task. You've done a brilliant job. Thank you. I'd like to ask you, Deborah, when did you first hear about this wonderful event?
I was actually unfamiliar with the story, there was a luncheon at the Met January 2011, and I actually read about it on NPR, and it piqued my interest. I thought it was absolutely fantastic and fabulous, and I wanted to learn more. So with some additional research, I discovered it was a way bigger story than I initially imagined, and I wanted to tell it. I actually became slightly obsessed with it, and I really wanted to create a platform for the story to be told and actually to hear the story told from the many voices who were there, the models, designers, or if there were journalists, but allow them to tell their own story and create that first voice for them to be the first ones to tell their own story.
Yeah. And what was it about this that inspired you to really go through the rigors of putting together a documentary film?
I mean, what's not to love, right?
Yeah.
Fashion, drama, New York, Paris, beautiful models, you know. Plus, it's a business story. It's an American story. It's a Black history story. It's a women's story. It's a story about David and Goliath. It's a lot of little mini flashpoints and movements starting and happening at the same time, and they all converge on the stage on one night in an audience that was filled to the brim. I think it's something that's incredibly historic that can't be repeated because the players aren't here to repeat it.
Yeah, the documentary is brilliantly edited and produced. And you are now an award-winning, accomplished filmmaker and documentarian, if that's the correct word. Is your education and background in filmmaking? Is that your background?
No, I actually studied English Lit and economics, but I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. I actually work in advertising. I work at an ad agency, so I guess I make mini films, little 30-second films, and so this was a big undertaking as a first-time film director, but I really wanted it, and it was a passion, much like the passion these models have, and it was a conviction, so that kind of led me through that 19-month process of being able to find all of these lovely people and find the documentation to substantiate the stories and do the research.
Fabulous. So share with us how you approached researching this information, because I'm sure that this event was well covered and it was lots of film footage and lots to choose from for you to decide how to edit, how to piece it together. So with all the myriad of information that was available to you, how did you really siphon through all of this?
Well, I wouldn't say there was a lot of film footage. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say there was hardly any film footage. The footage that you see was the only footage that I could find. And I think it was Pat Cleveland that told me she had actually not even seen that footage before. That was the first time that she'd seen it. So I think it was a lot of research. The information was not readily available. It was 40 years old. There were no iPhones, so there wasn't a lot of stuff on YouTube to find. So it required going to Versailles. It required coming to FIT, Bryn Mawr, Vanderbilt University. There were scores of universities and archives that we went to actually find this story, and then finding the people themselves. But I also wanted to document it with real documents. So I wouldn't say it was an easy task. The media covered it, but the media didn't always drill down to the stories of these women that are on the stage.
Yeah. You mentioned Versailles. Wasn't that a little intimidating going to Paris and the palace? And I mean, because the French are not they have a reputation actually for not being that friendly with foreigners. I mean, do you speak French?
I do, but I had an interpreter while I was there because my French was pretty shoddy, so I needed to actually move along quickly. We were on the waiting list for about 6 months to get a date to shoot there. So when we were finally there, it was no messing around. I had to get myself sorted out extremely fast, so I needed to make sure I had a French crew, and that's what we did.
And they were cooperative, and they
were very nice, actually. They were very cooperative. They weren't really sure what story we were really doing, but they were very nice about it.
Cool. And one last question actually is, among the many interviews that you had, were there any that you are regretful that you were not able to obtain of the participants?
Exactly. Alvin just said that the people that passed away are probably the biggest regrets because we weren't able to capture them to be a part of this 40th anniversary celebration and actually hear their voices. In terms of the people I don't have any regrets because the people in this cast are able to tell a clear, strong, articulate story, and I think they're able to transform and transport people from now to 1973, and I think they do that with tremendous wit, with tremendous creativity, and they're great storytellers. You know, we had an opportunity, we were at Oscar de la Renta's office to film him, and there was an emergency, so we weren't able to get him. But the cast that we have, bar none, is the best documentary cast I've ever seen, so I'm happy.
Right. Mr. Burroughs was invited, of course, to join us this evening. He had a prior commitment, so unfortunately he wasn't able to make it. I had spoken with him on the phone, and I was sharing some of my ideas with him. Because what came to me was the selection of the designers, the way it was aired here. And of course, you know, Eleanor Lambert was largely responsible for organizing the American contingency of this event. She was a brilliant woman, as you can have been displayed, Eleanor Lambert, in choosing, and she was clever. She cleverly chose, and if you realize the makeup of the team of the designers, the 5 designers, okay, she had 1 Hispanic, 1 African American, 1 woman, 2 white men. But look at that team. Look at the dynamic. Look at the diversity. Okay, she was very wise. I was curious because I saw in that video that the gentleman was talking about the selection of Stephen Burroughs. And he sort of chuckled, actually, and he said people were asking, why did she choose him? He's a young upstart at the pit. Stephen Burroughs against the couturiers in France? What sense did that make? And I was astounded at that notion because God bless Stephen Burroughs. What would they have done without him? What would this show have been without the contribution of Stephen Burroughs? They wouldn't have had a show. They wouldn't have won without him. I mean, not only that, at that particular time, because again, my question was, okay, there was some deliberating in terms of the other designers. Jeffrey Beam refused. James Galanos refused, for whatever reasons. Others accepted, fine, and they were being, there was a selection process. Was this same process taking place with the African American designers? Because there were various prominent African American designers at the time. I mean, you know the names of the prominent African American designers at the time.
I don't think that it was about that. I don't think Stephen, that was his moment. He was the new exciting designer. And completely. Oh. Excuse me, could you not hear me? Sorry. So I really do believe that, it was his time. I mean, yes, there was Scott Barry. Yes, there was Willie Smith. But their clothes were not like Stephen's. There was nothing out there like Stephen.
Right. Yeah. Well, the film alludes to the fact that it was somewhat of a political decision. Yeah, but give it a mic.
No, just Cody Award. Yes, please. Show. No. Yes. Thank you.
No, what actually happened is that Stephen Burroughs had won the Cody Award. He was a tutelage of Eleanor Lambert. She helped make that happen. The truth of it is that she selected her clients, and it was never at the time the word African American didn't even exist. Second of all, there were other people who were designers, but she never did it thinking, first I'm going to have a woman, then I'm going to have a Latin, she never did it that way. She did it based on what they contributed to the industry at the time, and they all were very good. They were all her clients. And she influenced also who was selected over even in Europe, because she had that connection with the gentleman who was going to help make that happen, and they sort of sorted that out.
Wait a minute, don't give up the mic. What I really want to go to is, all of you wonderful ladies here all have your individual stories, unique details about how this experience impacted you. What made it wonderful? was the fact that you were there, 11 African-American models were there, and they brought along, I mean, wait a minute, now I have a little statement here, because this is an eyewitness account of what took place that night. One of the, okay, wait a minute, and I'm reading. The most dynamic moment came when Beth Ann Hardison stalked down the runway in a tight-fitting yellow silk halter by Stephen Burroughs, holding a floor-length train in a tiny ring on her pinky. When Hardison reached the stage, she made a dramatic turn and haughtily dropped the train. The audience exploded in a frenzy of approval. They stomped, they screamed, they tossed their programs in the air and shouted, "Bravo!"
But she didn't even want to go out. We said, "Beth Ann, get out there. Go!" And we scared her to death, and she went out there and she took over.
I was right
So,
before.
so tell us, what did you do? Bring us to that moment and give us that excitement of what happened. What did you do?
Go!
Okay, come on. That was when Stevie had the dresses and all the different lengths and different, trains. So for you to come out with the last dress with the longest train and twirl and
That was me.
But what did you do? I'm talking to you at this moment.
Let me tell you what she did. She was being Beth Ann.
There you go.
She was the period of the sentence. She made us all stop and take notice because she was the bravest one of us all.
Correct.
You know, no one expected to see Beth Ann. She didn't even expect to see Beth Ann. She was like, "Who, me? Oh, no, I can't. Get out there." That was
Well, I think the irony was that you were the last one hired and you were the secret weapon.
You know what actually was is the fact that when we used to be in New York, and we would do the shows, each one of us had our own personality on the runway. Each one did something different. Each one was a little different. And it was a freedom time in that time. It wasn't about black. It wasn't about white. Different designers used different girls, and a lot of them were very unique. There was Giorgio Santangelo, Halston. There were many people who did really great things, but Stephen as well. And so I was known to do certain things on the runway. I was known for that. And because I was a theatrical kid before that, I brought a lot of the, dance crazy attitude to things. But when I got to Versailles, it was very difficult for me to do it because we didn't have a stage. We had just an embankment of a stage, but not a runway, not a runway. That was the hard thing. And so every time we do rehearsals, Halston would say, "Come on, Beth Ann, come on, you can do it, come on." He couldn't sit in the rehearsals because we were all trying to get warm, go to the bathroom, try to get something to eat, try to stay within the outside of the arguments, too, that was going on. I wasn't so much the model as much as I was the assistant to Stephen Burroughs. So I was a little bit in a different position. It was that moment at night that I knew that we had to win. I knew we had to win. And because of my fear, I had a great amount of fear going out. I went out right before Pat. Pat was the last one.
I pushed you out there.
I was in the yellow dress that was Stephen's specifically couture dress that he had made on me. And the fact of it is that I just went out, like Mickey said, I really, as Bill Cunningham said, I brought Watts to the table. He said, Bill Cunningham said, it was like Watts was in the house. I came down there with such fierceness that I came down really like a warrior.
Right.
And that moment of being that warrior, when I threw that train down, I defied every single person in that audience there. And I think that's the reason why it was so shocking to them. And I had, I was very thin and a little small, short hair and big eyes, and the way I did it, it just made something react. They just reacted. At that point, that's when we started screaming, and that's when Pat came down too, which helped us so much because at that point I was so nervous. It was a great moment for us, but believe us, we weren't caught up in the moment that you have now with the consciousness about being black so much and being white so much. And we were working for so many different people. It was a great time. It was a time of style and creativity. And even though we became those black stallions and those black models being written up, and we were being written up often, it was a different vibe. We were very well supported. I think in many ways we did, whatever issue we had some great energy from
We had
others.
love.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we did. Yeah,
Well, I think the thing that was so interesting to me about being a model at that time was that there was a collaborative thing going on between the models and the designers and the photographers. We would work together all the time. And on the weekends, we'd go and do shoots just because it was fun to be together. We loved being with each
Lifestyle.
other.
Yeah. Miss Cleveland,
What, darling?
tell us.
What, darling?
Tell us.
What?
Bring us to that moment. They said you came out twirling and twirled and twirled and twirled and brought that chiffon all the way up to eye level.
It's about making the designer look good.
Yeah.
Because they make us look good. We're ladies, and we do the right thing, and we behave properly. And when the time to break loose comes, you better do it or die. That's what it comes to. When it's your turn, you better do it, and do it the best you can, period.
What other benefits did you feel that you reaped as a result of this event after you got back home? Okay, the precious memories of it, fine, but then how did you benefit from it? Was your pay scale higher? Was your agency
No, that's
more?
the thing you have to understand. This is what was so interesting of why someone like Deborah and many people never heard of Versailles. It was a job. We didn't go there and come back and all of a sudden, what this is now as a documentary is quite different than what it was as an actuality. It was the joy of doing it. The fact that we actually won, the fact that we could walk through the Hall of Versailles and be invited to the great dinner, the fact that we had a moment to dance on that stage and really be productive was great. When we came home, we went right back to business. I mean, I don't think...
Business of being showgirls.
The fact that Anne Klein, who was at the time ill and dying, was so generous and kind to us.
She wasn't always kind.
But she said, for me, I have always
The
been
girls
a
who were
Franco-
light-skinned maybe, but not to dark-skinned girls.
I have always been a Francophile, and I've always loved Paris. My thought is that I was there generations ago. I believe in karma, past lives, etc. Anyway, I was very happy when she said, anyone who would like to stay for the weekend, it's on me.
Oh, that was great. No, and you know what? She did call me to her office when she decided she wanted to do this. When she knew she was going to do Versailles, she talked to me about it. She was very, very worried, and she wanted to talk to me about black girls. And she said, I know what I want to do because I'm going to do an African theme, and I need those girls. And do you think which girls should I use? She did. I was there for her. I told her, and she was someone I cared about very much while we were there, even though I was the assistant to another designer, because she felt very beat upon. She was very sad. She was struggling through because she was being pushed aside a lot, she felt. But everybody was fighting, and there was, struggling.
I mean, they didn't even invite Stephen or her to that luncheon. That we saw that picture of all of them together. They didn't even invite them. They didn't even tell them.
We don't care.
Really. But, one of the interesting things, that there were so many points that resonate with us to this day about Versailles 73. But I had the opportunity to stay at Versailles back in the 80s, courtesy of YSL Butane. And I was looking out, someone said to me, you're looking out on the great-great-grand sheet of Napoleon and Josephine. But the real point was that the breath of black beauty that's on this stage is what helped to restore Versailles. And that's a point that stayed with me. That gives me goosebumps to this day. And as far as work goes and the trickle-down effect, I didn't come to Essence until 1980. But the interesting thing is that most of the women on the stage were on the pages of inspiration, that is Essence, prior to Versailles 73 and certainly after. Being a model walking the beat or the pavement, if you will, in the 70s, before Versailles 73, there were people who wouldn't see us. I remember even going in for a go-see with natural hair, and they were saying at an agency, oh, Mrs. So-and-so would never see you like that. After Versailles 73, we got jobs in showrooms and great ways, and I went in one day, I had my hair pulled back, and oh, yes, well, who are you? Well, I'm the same girl you saw before with the natural hair, but we won't talk about that. But I got hired that day and sent out and got hired on 7th
Didn't
Avenue.
Beverly
So
get her
it
cover
was,
after that?
so I'm
Beverly
sorry.
Johnson got her cover.
First Vogue cover, yes.
Shortly after
yeah,
this.
Yeah, and Peggy Dillard, and you could go on down the line, not so long, but you could go on down the line. But the reality of it is that, you know, there was a time when we were sort of the invisible women. And, you know, the word is to give honor to whom honor is due, and these are the women who really made a profound difference. And certainly, if you look at what you said earlier about Deborah Rowley Draper, well, yeah, this story was reserved for her to tell, and for such a time as this. And now everyone will know what Versailles 73 was all about.
I would just like to share that it had repercussions for us. And for me personally, I worked for every single French designer after that except for Pierre Cardin. And it made a difference in my career.
Fabulous.
Definitely.
Ms. Blair, if you want to give us a word.
It made a difference in my career because it opened the doors for me to work in Europe. And the impact it had on my life, it made it possible for me to connect with other people, not just in Europe, but globally. I was excited about being in Paris because I had my fresh, crisp passport. So I learned merci beaucoup. And I enjoyed myself. We were very professional. I think that Dan mentioned the fact that it is a profession, and we respect the designers. We understood that we did, in fact, represent them also. We're like mediators. I like the fact that changing my life personally, working with such sensitive, creative, naturally intelligent people. You know, they say that we're muse, but I believe that people like Oscar de la Renta, you know, Calvin Klein, Bill Glass, all of them brought something out of me. My heart is still trying to figure out how they found her. So, yeah, it made a difference professionally, spiritually, and I'm just excited for all of you that's getting ready to go out into the world and, you know, and make a big difference. Here's my shoulders.
Barbara? Please share with us what your experience was.
Well, my experience was that after, there was a lot of talk, I guess, in New York after everyone had gotten back, but I, at that point, had moved to Los Angeles, so I wasn't in the mix of all the excitement of the shows and what happened. But from Los Angeles, I went to Europe and worked for quite a few people. I mean, as a matter of fact, when you talk about, at one point, they never used black girls. Well, black girls were all over Paris at that time. They were coming from everywhere. And a lot of them they weren't being hired, because they weren't as professional looking or as refined looking as most Parisians wanted them to be. But that Versailles did make a difference in that I was allowed to go on my own and work in Paris, very easily. So it was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Charlene Dash?
Well, I didn't do a lot of shows in Europe. I did very few shows in Europe. I returned to New York, and I did mostly photography. So it really didn't make an impact because in the photography world, it wasn't important. I did shows in New York, and I would fly to Paris, and I worked for a few magazines. But when I was in Europe, I did mostly photography, and I did shows in New York.
Was there a big distinction at that time where there were print models and runway models?
I just want to say it's not photography because people think she's just been in the lab. She was a print girl.
Yeah.
And it's a big difference. She was a successful print girl way before Versailles even happened. The fact of it is she worked for a few designers in New York, but when she came back, she continued to do print. She wasn't a runway girl. I was a runway girl, and I wasn't a print girl. Pat did print.
I was
she
print
did
and runway, and there
Alma
was a
did print
difference.
and runway.
Yeah.
But mostly they were known to be runway girls who then did print.
You know, that's an interesting point, too. During that era, like the 70s, that's when, I came to New York in 73, and at that time, the print girls were print girls, and the runway models were runway models, and I really didn't understand that at that time. But notice, in the, like, say, mid-70s, runway girls started to doing print, and print girls, women, started to doing runway. So therefore, a lot of us were registered with Eileen Ford or a print agency, but we were also registered with Ellen Hart and a couple of the other runway shows. So that gave African American women a chance to get more visual exposure because we carried on the runway. Oh, we could really actually show clothes, but they did come alive. Then the print world started to discover us. And then there was Virginia Slims. It was more than just one Afro-American woman. First it was Naomi Sims, then it was Beverly Johnson, then it was me and Beverly together, then it was me and Beverly and somebody else. But, that market opened for us. You understand what I'm saying? Then Bold Patterns. We were recognized for a minute. And I think what's happening right now, in the atmosphere is, the question is, well, what happened? Because we're still here. We're still buying clothes. We love to dress up. We love education. We love life. We just love living. So why are we not being respected as we should be?
Norma Jean.
Wait, I want to say something. As Norma Jean has said many times, during that time, during the early 70s, black models were in fashion. And subsequently, there have been other ethnic groups that have been in fashion. But, if you look in the magazines, if you look on watch television, you will see a variety of people. Black models are everywhere. When I worked for, let's say, Avon, I complained to the art director. I said, hey, you've only hired me for one day, not 5 days like everyone else. And he said, well, there's a logistics problem. Well, guess what? When I get a Neiman Marcus catalog now, there's no logistics problem. We are on multiple pages. So we are working, and we're working in more venues. It's just that on the runway, we are not in fashion. Now. So I believe there are more opportunities now than, in a broader sense of the word, than there were before. It was very narrow, and when you're in fashion, you go out of fashion.
Where's the money? Let me ask you, where's the money? Is the money in runway? Is the money in endorsements? Is the money, you say, because that's what this is a business. Where's the money?
Money is everywhere. It's the same. It was the same money. You got paid the same amount.
You have to be able to have an editorial to get you to that place of where you build. If you are not on, I know what Charlene is speaking of because she's someone who's lived it, and now there are people who can do commercial print, and they can do fashion print. It's more commercial, but we're talking about where the depth of the model is. It is in runway and in editorial. And in the advertising, fashion advertising, it's just beginning to peak a little bit, and it hasn't even begun to open up. We're in trouble.
Well, I want to say something. I owned a model agency for 20 years in Italy, and I had a model named Naomi and a model named Tara Banks. And nobody wanted to use them, and I took them into my agency, and we built their career. And it was very difficult for them because they were ladies of color, so they came back to the States and they found other venues, other ways to, heighten their career and follow their red carpet. So they're doing very well today. So the models, they venture out into film or business. Naomi Sims had a wig company, as so does Beverly Johnson and a few other girls. And
that wasn't their company.
Yeah,
That's just it.
but they
It
were the
wasn't-
face, you know, the
That
thing.
wasn't price. It was a job.
It was a job, and that's what it should be. For models, it's a job, you know. Yeah.
But we have some young ladies now who actually have beauty contracts. We didn't have that before. So I must say that.
I did Ebony, the first fashion fair.
I'm just talking about nice money, which they got, but we have more than one now. At one point it would be one and one. Now we have more than one. So I think that there are things that are progressing. Some things, fashion shows have definitely stepped backwards. But, for me, I don't even look at a fashion show as modeling. It's like a conveyor belt walking.
Well, the reason for that is, I've owned this agency for 20 years, and the thing is political. Where the money will go is where the types of girls and their ethnicity will take you. There are sometimes the Chinese and sometimes the African Americans. And now we have the African models, you see? So the American models open the doors for the African models. So the point is there's room for everyone, but it's all political, and it's all about production and where the business is going to go. And
Well, the
that's why you
strange
have
thing
20
is that at Versailles, there were no black models on the French side.
Yeah, and
then when we came along, we opened those doors for other black women to get into the French market. But I guess I'm the only one that was here when you couldn't get in anywhere. And one of the people who opened the doors, and I remember coming, I was selected from my college to come to New York to represent my college in Mademoiselle. And when I went in the front door, they said to me, there must be some mistake. You should be coming in the delivery entrance. And that was in New York at Conte Nash. And along came Audrey Smalls one day, and she called up and she said, "Let's picket Harper's Bazaar."
Yeah,
And
that's
she
right.
got me and about
That's right.
10 other models to go to Harper's Bazaar and to picket in front of Harper's Bazaar.
Right.
And after that, my darling, there were print models.
Right. That's right.
It's a mouthful there. This event started out as a philanthropic collaboration, turned into a philanthropic contest. And I realized that a lot of the people who were there as participants, like yourselves, were part of what was a successful winning formula. Like in every competition, you evaluate. The Republicans and the Democrats are doing it now. I won. They lost. Why did I win? Why did he lose? You come away with a lesson, and you find out for yourself what made you win. What was your road, your pathway to success? In this particular case, it was 11 African-American women. That was the road to success in this particular case. And maybe one African-American designer. But the point is, I wonder if we have continued with that successful formula. Have we abandoned it? Has it eroded? The repercussions, the positive effects that came as a result of that have diminished, have they not?
I just have to say that it was about being modern. It was about being simple. It was about honoring the creativity. It wasn't about being black or white. We were Americans with our present-day creative.
It was American ingenuity. That's what it was. It was something fresh.
We are thankful.
Yes, right.
We were thankful.
We had nothing but the girls. The fact that always what I've always said is that the fact of it is it was really just the girls, and it wasn't a black thing, and it wasn't, even though we're sitting here and yay, right on. The fact of it is that it really was a collaborative of people, and it was the spirit of America. I'm telling you, to watch those designers fighting the way they did, and then they came together, and at the end, It wasn't even like we won. The French weren't even sitting there saying, "Oh my God, they won, we lost." They were happy. They were so impressed that it was a different thing. I mean, they wouldn't have said, "Come to dinner and come through the halls." It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was something quite
Inspired. Exactly.
We
You know,
inspired them.
and we were just.
We truly inspired them, and Mrs. Givenchy proved it right away. He made his whole cabine all black girls because he was so inspired by the brilliance of the girls. In the end of the day, he took so much heat for that for years. But the fact of it is, it was an American effort of people who really, when the chips were down, we came.
I agree.
And that's what I'd like people to take away from the documentary. When you watch the documentary, what I want people to walk away with is that it was an American spirit, and it's an American story, and it was the David and Goliath story. And the Davids band together to take down the Goliath. And the Goliath celebrated with David at the very end. So it was impactful. And while we are African American, it takes a diversity of people to create success. And that's what everyone should walk away with, that every different person that was on that stage brought something to the table. And when you aggregate all of those differences together, you got something extremely powerful. And that was respected by the Americans and celebrated by the French. And that's the lesson I hope you take away from the film.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what, Deborah, you're absolutely right. And in terms of takeaways, you know, one thing I will always say is that it is always the right time to bring your most authentic self to any challenge. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. Could I ask you a physical question? This is the 40th year anniversary of this event. Let's reenact it. Let's bring it back again. And here's my question to you. If we had to replace, if we had to reconstruct this event for today, who would be the players this time? And who would be the opponent? Who would you select in America as the 5 contenders to represent America? And who would we oppose? Who do you say?
I know you're going for something, but I'm going to tell you something. It ain't happening. It ain't. You know, it's a whole different ball game. I wish you understood what we know that you just could never know if you asked that question. It's a different game. The great thing about it, and the good news and the bad news, it could never happen again. That's the good news and the bad news. It could never happen again. And we don't want it to happen again. And if you had never even recognized us, we would have been fine. Our lives were fine. The fact of it is, God bless the museum, the Metropolitan Museum, for even digging down that far and knowing that something like this existed and wanted to bring us all together. We got the chance to see each other again. My 2 sisters there, I always see. This fourth sister, I always see. But the fact of it is to see Billy and to see Jennifer Bryce and to see Amina and things like that, and pull together and what they gave us at that luncheon, it was so brilliant because it was in the Temple d'Andua. It was amazing. So we were just so happy for them that they could recognize us in this way. But you could never do this thing again. We won't even suggest it. We won't even play you. You will not get us to get up here and walk. You probably get Thank you. These two will do it anything. They'll do it anything. But that's never going to happen. That, what you saw on the screen, is what you need to remember. Nothing more, nothing less. There'll be no Mark Jacobs, Alexander Wang. No, that'll never happen again. Never. Because the people who existed at that time to make that happen don't exist anymore. The spirit of those people don't exist anymore. It's a different game.
That time doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
That's okay. There's new people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what do you say? We'd like to thank all of the incredible models.
I will tell you, if you enjoyed the film is available for download on iTunes, YouTube, Amazon, as well as the DVD is available at Versailles73movie.com if you enjoyed the film. Spread the word and tell your friends. Thank you. Thank you.
We are also selling the DVDs right outside in the lobby, so please, the DVD is available. Thank you all again for coming this evening.